let's stay on the tight end front while we can, right? Because if Georgia's going to go through signing day without a tight end, it'd be a shocker because they're not only in on the number one tight end and Deuce Robinson, they're also in on the number two available tight end, unless you consider Harbor a tight end. Even if you do, Walker Lyons is the number two most polished tight end in this class of 23 that's available come February 1st. And his options are pretty interesting as well. Very much national, very much bi-coastal, just like it is for Harbor and Deuce Robinson. Lyons is a former Stanford commitment, of course, Folsom, California native who wanted to play for David Shaw, understandably, right? Again, we just talked about tight end production, and Stanford's been among the 4 or 5 best over the last decade or so. In the academics and the degree speaks for itself. I don't have to explain that one at all. But David Shaw is no longer at Stanford. He, of course, resigned, and that offense will be, that whole scheme will be totally different under Coach Taylor, who comes up from Sacramento State. Okay. Stanford still technically under consideration, but there's a feel that Lyons has moved on. There's a feel that if he ends up in the Pac-12, it's probably more of a Utah deal, which has also done very well. Dalton Kincaid just wrapped up a really great career up in Salt Lake City. Then there's USC, which is kind of flirting with the whole Robinson Lyons dynamic. If we don't get Deuce and he goes to Georgia, let's pull Walker Lyons. But then, of course, Georgia is right in the thick of it as well. There is at one point in the last week where a source in Athens told me Georgia expects to land both Deuce Robinson and Walker Lyons. An embarrassment of riches in Athens. But look, they've done it in the past. They've done it in the past at multiple positions. And again, with the recent tight end history under Todd Monken, who could blame him? Who could blame these tight ends for wanting to be the next Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington? Although Georgia has stacked it up in multiple classes here. They've got Oscar Delp on the roster. Pierce Sperling is a young star, hybrid type of a pass catcher that's going to line up at tight end. The stable is full and well in Athens, but you cannot pass up a Deuce Robinson. And Walker Lyons profiles as a different type of prospect, not only in that he's a balanced inline tight end, but he's also a member of the LDS Church. So he will go, to my understanding, on a Mormon mission and miss the next year or so. He's also coming off of an injury, so he needs that time. So he's effectively a class of 2024 or maybe even a class of 2025 recruit. But he's still coming off the board. He's still a big deal. He's still a blue chipper who, my gosh, go look at his junior tape. If there wasn't a Deuce Robinson in this class, you could make a very, very strong argument that Walker Lyons would have been the top tight end in the country. So he's still on the board. Former Stanford commitment. I think if he ends up in the Pac-12, it's a Utah USC deal. But there's the Georgia Bulldogs looming just like they are for Deuce Robinson. I think the bigger surprise would be if Georgia strikes out at tight end in this cycle going forward. They've already landed some, but if they don't land a Deuce Robinson or a Walker Lyons, I would be surprised because, again, less than a week ago, a Georgia native and source told me, hey, they think they're getting both. So Georgia usually doesn't miss on those kind of recruits because, look, they're the back-to-back defending national champions. Kirby Smart is as good a head coach recruiter as there is. And again, Todd Monken, particularly one of the best offensive coordinators in the country, and has utilized that tight end position quite well. So we'll see what those NFL rumors could potentially do to those recruitments at the tight end spot. USC could stand to benefit from one or both of those, depending on how these decisions come into play. So fascinating on the tight end front. So we've